Thank you. Wow, I don't remember. That was pulling back from a long time ago. It's great to be here. I've been told that I've got to try to speed things up, so I'm going to talk really fast. We've all heard a lot about what it means to go digital, and I'm sure by now each of you has a lot of ideas about what that means to you. To me, going digital means that as a company, you're thinking about how to embrace connections, right? Going digital is really an approach to problem solving that leverages all of these tools of digital, like social and mobile and analytics and all of the buzzwords we hear, in the service of helping small teams within your organization solve really hard problems. And so with that definition, I want to describe to you today a couple of problems that I think illustrate this approach to problem solving. And so with that, let's start with an actual problem. So if I dropped you in this forest and asked you to somehow get across it, what would you do? I'm guessing that most of you would take this nice little path, right? This problem has been solved by all of the people that came before you. And if you think about it, it's the data from every footprint captured and stored by the Earth that created a solution to this problem in the pattern that it forms. So how do we take something like this and make it digital? The modern equivalent of this is embodied in Google's instant search, right? It's based on the exact same idea of a path in the woods. Google combines the billions upon billions of queries and uses them to create a statistical path through this complex search landscape. We take it for granted, but companies like Google solve these incredibly hard problems by aggregating all of this data together and created billions of dollars of value in the process. But not all problems can be solved by aggregating digital data, right? There are all kinds of problems that you face, and even bigger problems like cancer and global warming and world hunger that require lots of incredibly complex coordination and collaboration. So can we solve those kinds of problems by going digital as well? A few years back, DARPA began asking that same question. So DARPA, in case you don't know, is the organization that created things like GPS and the technology behind Siri and cloud computing, and lots of other things. 40 years ago, they also happened to create the internet. The internet gave rise to the web. It gave rise to things like social and mobile and all of the things that we think about as digital today. And so DARPA wanted to know whether you could use this new digital infrastructure to solve really hard problems. And what they did was issue a challenge. They said, we're going to give $40,000 if you can find these 10 red balloons. The only clue they gave was that they'd be visible on a single day for a couple of hours somewhere in the United States. So I heard about this challenge about 4 days before it began. Back then I was a researcher at MIT. I sent out an email to my research group asking if anybody had a $40,000 idea. And within a few minutes, I had a small team in my office brainstorming ideas on a whiteboard. We said, there's 10 balloons, $40,000. We'll assign a value of $4,000 to each balloon. If you sign up and find one, we'll give you $2,000, and we'll give the other half to charity. Now, notice that this solution doesn't scale. So we added a twist. We said, you're never going to find a balloon. The chance that you're in the place that you find one is basically zero. So you don't have to find one. Just sign up and share with your friends. And if they find a balloon, then they'll get the $2,000 for doing the hard work. And $1,000 goes to them, and $1,000 goes to charity. And you can imagine continuing this all the way down the chain until you end up with splitting this all the way down. And so what I want to share with you is the process. We built the site in 2 days. We launched it on the third day by sending out an email. And what you see on this map on the right side is I think I've got a clicker here. This is the actual network of connections that formed in this referral chain, with MIT at the center, and then friends of friends and friends all the way out the chain. So I want to give you a sense of, from the day we launched, which was December 3rd, until the day the challenge began, which was December 5th, how we built this network using that strategy. And what you'll see on the map are dots that correspond to each person that signed up, where the color, each dot has a color and a sound. So dots that are red and low tones signed up directly or close to MIT, whereas dots with more yellows and even greens and higher tones signed up as a result of many, many referrals. So let's just listen to this. If we can get the sound up a little bit. So now it's about the day before the challenge, and things start to really take off. So here we were, it was the day the challenge began. We come into the office thinking, really surprised at how effective this kind of strategy was, thinking that, hey, we might actually have a chance of winning this thing. And when we started to put the balloons on the map to see where people were telling us they saw balloons, this is what we got. All right, so here's lesson one in going digital. Not everybody wants to be on your side. There were 4,500 other teams that were trying to sabotage us. And you know, at this point, we were a small team with a simple idea, iterating and improving upon it, building a project in a very short amount of time, launching it, getting results, and the first results were a complete disaster. And so what did? We realized we had to continue to improve. And so I'll skip some of the details, but we started learning from people how to get better data. We modified the site to encourage them to submit in better ways. We then started looking at all of the submissions and the data, and we said, you know, if you told us there's a balloon in California, but your computer's IP address says that you're in Florida, let's just toss those out because you probably didn't see the balloon firsthand. And when you do that, you go to something that looks like this. Right, so this is better. This is still completely wrong, but at least we're now nearing in on the solution. The next thing we did was to look at patterns of submission. Let me see if I can get all these going. So what you notice on the top were 3 balloons that later turned out to be accurate, and on the bottom are 3 balloons that later turned out to be false. And what you start to notice in the pattern of submissions is that when people saw a balloon, each person had their own perspective and reported it in a slightly different location. So there was more natural variance in where they were telling you. Whereas people who found balloons online or through other kinds of spoofing would often submit the precise same geographic location every single time. That allowed us to narrow it down to a set of balloons. And when we started looking at where they actually were being submitted, we found that there were 10 that turned out to be in public parks. And we thought that was a little curious. So we took those 10 and hit submit. These were the final 10 locations. We found all the balloons in 8 hours and 52 minutes. Right? We went from 0 to winning this thing in 4 days. And it was a small team continuing to iterate and improve upon a simple idea, building the tools we needed as we went and learning from the system as it went along, getting smarter and smarter with all the data as it was coming in. And so, you know, this is great. This is, you know, a lot of fun, and it's a great toy story to help illustrate some approaches to going digital. But what about more important problems? Are there things that we can do with these kinds of approaches that can help us solve really important things? Oh, let's see if I get. A few weeks after the balloon challenge, there was a devastating earthquake in Haiti. 100,000 people died, and tens of thousands of people were trapped inside of buildings. What did you guys do when you heard about this? Right, I'm guessing that most of us did nothing. Right? We assume that there are government organizations and aid organizations that have resources and plans and strategies and will rush in and save the day. And for the most part, you're right. But when these organizations arrived in Haiti, amongst all of the problems that they were facing, one of the things they realized is that Haiti had never been mapped. So what that means is when you and I talk about addresses, we assume that those things relate to actual coordinates in the real world. We can type anything into Google Maps and it tells us where it is. In Haiti, addresses were just things that locals used to communicate. They didn't actually correspond to anything on a real map. And so what you had were locations where people were known to be trapped and search and rescue teams standing by ready to help them, but they just didn't know where to go. Oh, these are some old slides. Okay, well, I'll go with these. So let me go back one. Around that same time, there was a small group of students in Cambridge, Massachusetts that began organizing in response to this earthquake. And they started using digital tools to help with this mapping process. Within a couple days, they became experts to the point that organizations like the US military and FEMA were relying on them as the source of truth. 4 days into this, one of the aid organizations reached out to them with an urgent request saying, we need the coordinates of 7 locations where people are known to be trapped. And there was a student working on this by the name of Anna who got really good at this. She knocked out the first 6 locations in a couple of hours, but she was having a lot of trouble finding that 7th location. Now, just imagine that you're a graduate student in an apartment in snowy Cambridge, Massachusetts, trying to find the GPS coordinates of a building in Haiti, half a world away. What would you do? Like, a few years ago, there was literally nothing you could have done, but she went digital. She tweeted. She sent out this tweet saying, I need the address of the Umbomprine or the Napoleon Hotel. And what's incredible is that within a short time, somebody got back and said, I don't know where the address is, but I think that used to be a Holiday Inn. And so using that information, she realized that the Holiday Inn probably had a pool. And so she found a satellite map and found a pool. And then a short time after that, somebody tweeted and said, I know a guy that used to work at that hotel. He lives in Brooklyn. Here's his phone number. Call him. And so using satellite images and data coming from Twitter, they were able to walk themselves on this satellite map to where the location was. So just to drive this point home, I want to show you this little video that illustrates the power of small teams using digital tools to solve really hard problems. This shows how the entire country of Haiti was mapped within a few short days after this earthquake, where each line is somebody contributing new map coordinates. So what does this mean to us? What are the lessons we can learn from this that you can use in your organizations? If you want to go digital, do you need to have a committee and a governance board and a big budget? To me, going digital starts with a hack week, right? It starts by empowering people and small teams in your organization to make decisions. It comes from realizing that ideas are useless without execution, that learning is absolutely better than knowing, and that done is better than perfect. Right? If you want to go digital, you need to realize that in a connected world, small teams can do incredible things if you empower them to try. Because it's in trying that we will fail, and it's in failing that we learn, and it's in learning that we can eventually go on to succeed. So with that, thank you very much.